Hey, and welcome back to Caleb's Corner, and today we are looking at the Black Series Darth Vader from Kenobi on Disney Plus. Now, initially, I had no interest whatsoever in collecting or even reviewing Black Series figures, but a good friend of mine showed me his collection. He's a big Black Series guy, and I have to say, I was quite impressed with the sculpt and detail in a lot of them, and a lot of them really stood out to me as really fantastic figures. So I caved and I decided to pick up a couple, and we're starting with this Darth Vader from Kenobi from the Disney Plus show. On the front of the package, you will see Vader encased in the window in his plastic sleeve here. On the side of the package, you will see an art pinup of Darth Vader himself. On the other side of the package, you will see pretty much nothing, just the blue slit on the art and then the side of the window. And then on the back of the packaging, you will see the same art pinup of Darth Vader himself from the side of the package, and you will also get a character write-up. And as always, if you want to read that write-up, you can go ahead and pause right now. And with that out of the way, let's go ahead and open him up and get him out of the packaging. Here he is, Darth Vader, out of his package. I have to say, upon first impressions, I do like the way this figure looks. He's very well put together, but we'll get to that in a second. First, let's talk accessories, of which he only gets one. He only gets his lightsaber. It's the only accessory Darth Vader gets. He gets the lightsaber hilt and the blade, which actually do pull apart. So if you want, you can unplug the blade of the lightsaber from the lightsaber hilt and separate the two, which allows you to use the D-ring on the lightsaber hilt and actually attach it to Vader's belt, which I thought was a neat detail, but that is it for accessories. That's all you get. And with his lightsaber out of the way, let's go ahead and jump into articulation. For Darth Vader here, you will be able to get his head to go up about this far and down that far. That is it. Super limited up and down. For side to side, you get also zero. There's nothing happening there. You will be able to get him to spin his head around 360 degrees, which is standard with almost every figure, but very limited head articulation. And something I just noticed as I look closer at the figure, there's no chain around his cape. On the box art even, normally Vader does have a chain that holds his cape in place, but there's nothing there on the figure. His shoulder will go out to a 90-degree angle. I did notice, though, there's a weird bulge here on his armpit with how they designed the shoulder socket, though I suppose it could represent, like, his lat muscle connecting to the body of his suit, but it just looks bizarre. I'm not a big fan of it. No butterfly joint. The shoulder will go around 360 degrees. There is no bicep cut either, which is odd, but you will get a single jointed elbow only, which gives you 90 degrees. I don't understand why you wouldn't use a double jointed elbow. They give you so much more range. The elbow does pivot though and will spin around 360, and you don't get any forearm cut either, which is odd because you have the perfect spot to hide it right there at the base of the glove, but you don't get one for some reason. The hands will twist all the way around and you get a horizontal articulation pin on both hands, which I find annoying considering that most lightsaber users that I can find in the Black Series line, even blaster users, get a vertical pin, so you get more nuanced posing out of the weapon they're holding. But no, for some reason Vader here is using horizontal on both, which is bizarre because so many older figures and even figures they're releasing concurrently on this line get a vertical pin for their weapon hand. It's baffling to me. I don't understand it. Like, the articulation, the more I'm like looking at it, it's just odd and seems kind of archaic, but it is what it is. As for a waist articulation, you do get a waist swivel, though it only goes that far side to side. It's extremely restricted because of the soft goods, and soft goods are something in the figure community I've noticed that people are generally kind of split on. They either love it or they hate it. I'm kind of indifferent. I like it when it's done well, and I hate it when it's done poorly. What seems to be happening here is that the soft goods on the torso seem to be one solid piece flowing from the torso to the comma, which means when you turn the figure, that fabric tightens and stops Vader from being able to swivel further on his waist pivot, which is odd because they could have just glued that fabric to the torso itself instead of having to go all the way through, which would have allowed you to have the soft goods hidden with the seam at the belt, and still let Vader move. So I don't understand why they didn't do that. As for his legs, he will kick out forward about this far, which isn't bad. It's standard. I feel like having him go out to about 90-ish. And then backwards, though, he will kick out to the rear about this far, which isn't bad. You do get an upper thigh cut, though, which caught me by surprise. Totally, considering you don't get a bicep or a forearm cut, but you get a thigh cut, which is nice. His knee is double jointed, unlike his elbows, which are single. And it's not a bad double joint. It goes this far backwards, which is more than I feel like enough, and some better than you get on other figures. Though you do lose a lot of the sculpt there. It does end pretty abruptly. I'm almost having flashbacks to Halo 2 Master Chief, though admittedly it's not nearly as gappy and ugly visually as Halo 2 Master Chief's double jointed knees were. And unfortunately, you get no boot cut either, which is odd because you could hide it seamlessly right there where his boot is, but you don't get it. His foot will go forward that far, back that far, and you do get an ankle rocker on Vader's feet, which is nice, but it's just there's so many weird decisions going on with the articulation. Though admittedly, articulation of Black Series figures is why I was so apprehensive to collecting them in the first place, and now having one in hand, it seems that they make a lot of weird decisions. And then I did want to talk about the soft goods. You do get it on the torso and comma, but you also get a soft goods cape, and the cape, I have to say, is gigantic. This thing is huge. It fills up the entire frame. The entire space where I film reviews is nothing but Vader cape, and I feel like it does pin too far to the rear of Vader's sculpt. Even on the box art, you can see it does pin closer to the front of the figure. So I thought the placement of the pin is weird. But the cape is just gigantic. I was shocked with how big it was when I pulled it out of the box. I almost feel like they intentionally give you too much cape so you can just trim it yourself and cut it down to the length you prefer. But it's just massive. I was astounded when I pulled it out of the package, and it's tucked way into the back of the package too. So when you pull them out, you just like rip out this entire long piece of fabric. It's just almost comically large. And credit where credit is due, whoever sculpted this figure did an incredible job. The sculpt in detail is fantastic, and he's well painted too, super clean, though admittedly Vader is a relatively simple paint job considering he's mostly silver and black, and you get the silver highlights on the mask and the silver on the torso, and then the black on the bodysuit is a different finish than the gloves. So the gloves and boots are actually more glossy. The main terminal on his chest has more of a glossy black finish with his really cleanly painted button details. Even the buttons on his belt are super well painted. I'm not noticing a lot of gaps or smudge or where the paint got where it shouldn't be. He's well done. Even through the back, he's sculpted well. Here you can see like the armor continues to the rear of his sculpt, and it's still painted all the way through, though it should be. And the legs are just super well detailed. I love the texturing of his undersuit as well, like the fabric part of the bodysuit, I mean, versus the metallic armor that you see like on his chest and his helmet, of course. The only real issue with the paint job I have will actually be his eyes. In the show, Vader has these strikingly red eyes, and on the figure, it looks like only one very thin coat of red paint was done over the black of the helmet, so you get this more like brown muddy look on his lenses versus the red you see in the show. So that is one gripe I have with the paint job, would be I wish the lenses got a couple more coats of paint and were much more strikingly red versus this muddy look you get now. And the lightsaber is well painted too, super clean with the silver on the activation switch, the silver in between the black grips on the bottom of the lightsaber. The D-ring is well painted. Even there's a gold button on the back, which is all super well done. And all of that brings us to our final thoughts on the Black Series Vader from Kenobi. I think for the most part, he's a promising figure. I think the sculpt is super well done. The paint is super clean. But I think the thing that holds this figure back the most is super weird decisions for articulation. The horizontal pivots on the wrists instead of vertical, the lack of butterfly joint, which I've heard that previous versions of Vader, I think it was the Empire Strikes Back version of Vader, had a butterfly joint, so it's weird we don't get one here. No bicep cut or forearm cut, no boot cut either. It's just there are so many weird decisions being made for this figure, and the fact that the soft goods restrict the waist pivot really bothers me. So I think this figure could have been a lot more than it is. Oh, and the super restrictive neck articulation and head as well is odd, and which is weird because Marvel Legends are also a Hasbro action figure line, and though Hasbro's Marvel Legends are hit and miss, when they hit, they hit. And a lot of those figures, chiefly the Amazing Fantasy 15 figure, which we've reviewed on the channel, is a gorgeous, well-articulated figure, and then to turn around and get this is so bizarre to me. Just give us double-jointed elbows. Like, what's going on? With that, for our final verdict for Vader here, I think we're going to have to go with a 5 out of 10. He's not the worst figure we've looked at here on Caleb's Corner, but he's certainly not the best. I think he's a passable figure, right down the middle, average. 5 out of 10. And that will do it for this review. Thank you so much for sticking around to the end and watching all the way through. Let me know in the comments down below if you have this figure and what you think about it, and also what you want to see reviewed on the channel next. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to give it a like, and if you want to see more content like this, go ahead and subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out next time I upload. And I will see you next time here at Caleb's Corner.